but I'm not really a betting man. I'm a statistical man. And my statistics are very simple here. They're very easy. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you no boring scientific talk. Best versus best equals high probability of a bloody good tear up. Yeah, I would give you the same argument, Matt, but I'm going to use much more simple language. My language is called $25 million. That somehow $25 million can change a human being. You know?
Yeah.
That's where we break down the barriers. I'm not the Bob Geldof of boxing.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Boxing News, The Opening Bell. Delighted to be joined by the one and only Kalle Sauerland, who is here, I'm pleased to say, to talk about the World Boxing Super Series. It's something that we have missed recently at Boxing News. Boxing fans have missed it. So, Kalle, tell us where we're at with the World Boxing Super Series.
Well, first of all, hi Matt. Great to be on here. Great to be with my friends at Boxing News, my favourite magazine on the planet. We've been bustling and hustling through the different weight classes, the different formats of how to make the tournament next year. We're narrowing it down the whole time in terms of weights, and it is a moving target, like so much in the sport at the moment. Say we're down to now to the 5 weight classes, which ultimately it's always my suggestion, which goes to a board and they make the final decision also on who goes in. Obviously, it's all based on that recommendation. It's not the Kalle show. It's a much bigger thing than that. And but it's the that I've been looking at, the 5 that sort of get my juices going are that obviously at the top end, the heavyweights, the middleweights, the light heavyweights, the flyweight in a sort of almost potentially in a super fly catchweight situation, and the females, around the featherweight, super featherweight, that sort of also once again in a catchweight function. Those are the areas or the weights that have taken our attention. Those ones we're focusing on at the moment. So it's busy times working out how that will be done over the next calendar year. So many unanswered questions. I think it's, the WBS has always prided itself on delivering for the athletes, delivering the platform, the regular fights as well. You can look at season 2. Of course, there was the Corona interruption, but prior to that, I mean, Josh Taylor and Regis Progress, who fought that legendary fight at the O2 where Josh lifted the Muhammad Ali trophy. They fought those 3 fights in the space of 13 months. And that was gold dust at the time in the business. But at the moment, given the Corona situation and the desire for big fights from the big names, I think it puts us in a very, very strong position for next year. And we're coming up with a way of delivering those fights as much, or let's say to a higher percentage as possible, regardless of is it with fans, without fans, in an environment that is safe for the athletes, for the people producing it, for the whole crew that are there, and and keep that WBSS flag flying high, which we've done in the first 2 seasons. So we're itching to get going, and first quarter of next year will be more the formal announcement side of things, but we're busy now to put it together in the background. It's not something that you can just, it's not a fight that you make. Even big fights sometimes get made in minutes. I remember a long time ago making David Hay Valuev with Adam Booth in the bar at the Dorchester Hotel in London. In literally about 8 minutes, I had to get to the airport. So that was, honestly, that is the fastest I've ever done a fight. That was with the Dark Lord himself. But this is a different time, and this is, a tournament is a completely different thing to put together. But we've made some good progress. So you know, I mean, you know, we can. I mean, why don't we go through the weights and I'll give you
Exactly.
my ideas, you give me your ideas. Maybe
Absolutely.
maybe if this is going out on social media, write in. Tell us, who do you want to see in these weights? We'd love to hear from you, because everything that you put in, I can put into moving forward and putting that to the board and getting approval on it. You know, because it is a fans tournament and it's driven it through the first 2 seasons. So, you know, I mean, should we start on a flies? Why don't we start with a little big men? You know,
Before we start on that, Kalle, just tell me. So you've
too eager. Sorry, man. I'm too eager.
Sorry, you've got it down to 5 weights at the moment.
Yeah.
How many of those weights are then likely to be going into competition in season?
I would hedge my bets there and say between 1 and 3. That depends very much. That depends very much on a number of dynamics. You know, of course, it's professional boxing, where everyone has to get paid, and we'd have to look at different budgets around different weights. But also, we have to look at the way, what I was talking about before, is how much of it can be normally produced and how much does it have to be under corona production, because for us the timeline of events is so important in the delivery. And you saw from the final, you know, we were the first promoters in boxing. The WBS were the first out the block with a number 1 against the number 2 of a division. You know, Breedis Dorticos, different sides of the Atlantic. We were the first ones to do that. It was the proof of the concept. It was the proof that the WBSS delivers, where many people said, oh, they won't do the final now. It's, you know, no, we pulled it through. It was a great fight. We saw who the king of the cruiserweights is in Myris Breedis. And, you know, that was down to the way that we approach the sport and the way it's done as a team at the WBSS. So, you know, it will depend a lot on what the calendar is. But in the next month or so, we will know what that schedule is, and these weights will get filtered into that.
Okay, all right. Well, let's start down at flyweight, and just a reminder to everybody that's listening, that's watching, that you are welcoming feedback on this. This is still at the very beginning of the process. So, as you've already said, that this is very much a fans tournament. It's the fans' favourite tournament. This is, as I've said at Boxing News before, when this tournament works, and it has done every time, it is boxing utopia. This is what we want to see. So it would be great to get everybody's feedback. So let's start at flyweight. So you can put one name in there at the moment.
First name down. I'll throw in a crazy one, because it's brothers, isn't it? You know, can you put them both in the tournament? You know, I mean, the Edwards names for me are synonymous with the weight class, both of them. I don't know how we could solve that, but you've got to put them both down. You'd have to skip to Mexico. You look at Martinez, Mafalani, South African, IBF champ.
Yeah.
Delakian, the Ukrainian. You know, you've got, you know, at the UK, Andrew Selby, Mohammed Wazim, from the Pakistani boxer. Also heard great things about him. Bit of a wild card. Wang Fengji, Chinese guy. So I think I've thrown in a few there.
Yeah, you got Nakatani as well, down at flyweight. Tanaka, Kose Tanaka.
Jay Harris, UK.
Jay Harris. There was also the interesting fight that we saw where Andrew Maloney was kind of hard done by, we felt, against Joshua.
I didn't say his name yet. Maloney is on that list, 100%. I met him when we had his brother in the tournament at bantamweight. What a pair of brothers! Oh, no, seriously, what a pair of fellas. They really are. Great team, great manager they have, and they're great to work with. But you know what? They bring thunder from down under in the ring. They bring proper. You know that you're going to get a proper fight with them. I remember him fighting Rodriguez, the brother, at bantam. Everyone was like, "Who's this? You know, who's the number 8 seed sort of going in here?" Oh, he gave him a murderous night. So, no, definitely, that's a good call. But I have got him on the list. I didn't forget Maloney, but yeah, That's a good one.
What about the old guard at Superfly? There's the likes of Roman Gonzalez, Juan Francisco Estrada. People will be mentioning those names if we are going to be including the Superflyweights.
Yeah.
How realistic is that?
You know, Matt, whatever we come up with, whatever we come up with, there's going to be a lot of old guards and new guards and young guards and complaining. But, you know, at the end of the day, for me, you've got to look at getting the champions, as many as you can in that way. Then I look for some star potential that potentially is over. I'll give you an example of what I've done in the past with Donaire, yeah, where people said, nah, he's a write-off now. Write-off? Where are you now, people that were saying that to me? Where are you now? Yeah? And you know who you are as well. You know, I was
one of them, to be honest.
You were one of them. There we go. No, but it's very serious. A lot of people were writing Donaire off. Yeah. But I like to throw in a bit of you, a bit of you know, you mustn't forget there's a difference between a fighter who's over the hill, and there's a difference with someone who's done it all and has tried something else, like Donaire did. He tried to go different weights, and it wasn't quite working out for him. I always felt that bantam was his natural weight and bring him back to that weight. So the name's, yeah, throw in the old guard as well at Superfly. Do we do it at a catch weight? For us, no problem. We'd have to work out a deal with the federation that they can keep their belts. But for us, it's about getting the best out of it. And to combine the two weights is something that we haven't written off. I would focus on the flyers, to be honest. Okay. But I look at opening up.
Could we find a space for Kenshiro, who's down at light flyweight? He's an exciting talent.
Amazing fighter, and great character as well. Yeah, I mean, the same applies the other way, doesn't it? You know, he wants to step up. I mean, you wouldn't want to see people do multiple jumps of weight classes.
No.
But, you know, those guys at light fly, they're walking around at fly 98% of the time anyways, you know, so it's about adjusting the training. And I think that, you know, in a tournament schedule, you saw that you see the way that the fighters cope over the season, you know? So it's, it's doable. And in fact, they get better through the tournament because they start adjusting, you know? So, but why don't we move on to going right to the other end of the Richter scale? Why don't we start with the heavy? We'll go move on to the heavy boys. So the one that's obviously been talked about a lot, the heavyweights. You know.
Well, then hit me with the first name you're thinking of at heavyweight. Hit me with the first name.
Let's open it up. Let's do it differently. Let's say we've got two kings of heavyweights at the moment. For me, the king is Tyson Fury, and Joshua is very close to the second king. They're both on a level, and that's why everyone wants to see that fight. Moving down from there, there is an abundance of talent. And when I say an abundance, to put down, let's say we went for a list of 12 today, yeah? If I rattle them off, right? You go with, you start at the top with, let's say, Usyk, yeah? Dillian White, Filip Hrgović, Derek Chisora. Did he earn that shot from last time? I mean, I love Del Boy. He brings one thing. He brings a hell of a lot of fun to the tournament, that's for sure. And I'd have him down on there. You know you're going to get a tear up. Joyce this weekend, Dubois this weekend. If it's a classic, you could put theoretically both in. You know, there's nothing bad in our sport in losing in a great fight. Absolutely nothing bad about it. So no problem there. Maurice Bridges, I'll throw one in there. Moving up to heavyweight, cruiserweight king, Wbss. Now the Usyk path from cruiserweight to heavyweight. We've seen what he can do. He knocked out Manuel Char, the current WBA regular champion, in a proper old school knockout. Murat Gassiev, moving up. Bakoli, another one. I saw this Chinese fella from Matchroom Can he bang Zhang? Brilliant, Zhang Zhidao. He looked like he could mix it. You know, I mean, it wasn't exactly the highest level of opposition he was facing, but he certainly can whack. And what about, you know, I mean, Michael Hunter? You know, he might be fighting Hrgovic shortly, but that could be someone be on the list. I'll throw in a wild card. People might kill me for it. We can start discussion about that now, Matt. Do you put him in? Don't you? Sporting wise, you'd have to put him on the list. It's Jarrell Miller. You know, he's serving a ban, but I can. The viewers cannot see the look you're giving me right now. but listen, you serve your time for a crime. I'm not going to get into a discussion now. We haven't got enough time to get into discussion on the doping and not doping. Everyone knows my feelings on doping. It should be, you know, it should be served as a criminal offence, like certain things. He has, however, put in a case which, when you read the case, it's quite an interesting one. And then you hear all sorts of stories when it's things like this. But you know, forget the story behind it. We have to go by what the court says. Do you put him in if he's available? Matt, what's your take on that? I'll ask the question.
I think it's difficult, isn't it? I think if we're gonna, I mean, there's other
Miller
guys.
Chisora. Think about that, Miller.
Yeah, I mean, you can think about it as
Chisora. You'd buy. It'd be a pay-per-view press conference.
And it would be, but it's all about the press conference, isn't it? And that's the danger. But if you're going to mention on here, two of the other guys' names that I've got down here, which you haven't mentioned, is Luis Ortiz and Alexander Povetkin. Now, These are guys that have got, shall we say, a bit of a checkered past when it comes to drug testing. So if you're going to throw those names on there with a clear conscience, then I guess you can start to throw in Big Baby Miller. But me personally, I wouldn't like to see that, but I'll be interested to hear what fans have got to say. I think for me, the everything, it's the wrong message. We keep giving out the wrong message.
Yeah,
because it's people like you that can give out the right message.
Yeah.
People like you that can say, okay, well, I'm sorry, I don't care what they're saying. And then it gives out the right message to everybody else.
You really put me on the stool now, Matt. I felt my seat go up about 4 degrees while you're talking. Okay, well, I'll listen to let's have a listen to what the fans' feedback on that name is. I mean, Povetkin was, by the way, Povetkin is on my list with White together in one sort of category. Yeah. I think that different to Joyce Dubois, where you could see that an argument for both still going in. I don't know. I mean, unless it's an absolute barnstorm of the second fight between White Povetkin, I would think it would make more sense just to put the winner in. It's been over 2 fights already, and you know, yeah. But Povetkin on pedigree, you know, he was the first fighter I signed 16 years ago. So that was my first professional. So. You know, I've got a lot of love for Povetkin. If he can do it again against, I mean, 100%. Yeah. So I think with the heavyweights, I mean, that sort of rounds off the heavyweight, but you see the depth, you know. I would guess we just said 15 fights.
There's some others that you may have said them, but I haven't ticked them off my list. Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz, 2 recent former champions. What about those guys?
Yeah. 100% on the list. Now, I'm also trying to make this realistic. I don't see Andy Ruiz signing a fight in 12 months. I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. And maybe I'm wrong on that, because Andy Ruiz actually, you know, he's stepped up before in fights at last minute, and I've got to give him credit. I'm always thinking about the Ruiz that turned up in Saudi Arabia, but there was a Ruiz before that, and he was one hell of a fighter, to be fair. Yeah. So yeah, Ruiz, yeah.
And it might help him. Sorry,
judging Wilder on his recent condition in his recent video messages, it could end up being a 30-year tournament. You know, so no. Wilder would never ever go in against this. This wouldn't happen. It would not happen. If it would have happened, why is he not taking the option to fight Tyson? Why has that not happened? You know, why is he putting out video messages the week after the option expired? You know, so yeah, of course, you know, Matt probably outside of the top two, he'd probably be the first on the list. You'd have to argue. You know, he served many years as heavyweight champ, but we've got to be realistic about this as well. Are these guys that will go in? Povetkin, I can tell you, goes in. Rui's actually all right. He would go in, but Wilder, I couldn't see him going in. And he maybe that's not a criticism. He's been at the top, and at the top. So this is also a little bit about, you know, guys who've got the hunger to go on. The people will say, oh, well, Chisora, he's not, you know, he's at the end of it. But Chisora hasn't reached the top yet. The question is, does he deserve that chance to go in to try and reach the top again? You know, not again, but to get there, to get to that point. Yeah. And I would argue that, yeah, it's a push, but Del Boy is Del Boy, you know. And I've also got to think a little bit about making it as colourful as possible and personality-wise as possible. You don't want to have 8 great boxers, and you know, yeah, we all know when the sport gets a bit boring. And Del Boy is always full of entertainment, and that's all part of it. But he also does walk the walk as well at the end of the day.
Be interested to hear what everybody's got to say about this. What I will say, and Andy Ruiz, kind of on your point there, is you did say that before the Saudi Arabia fight, there was a very different Andy Ruiz. So he went from training for Dimitrenko, looked really strong there, and then straight into another camp. And something like this might be just what he needs. I think that tournament, the tournament format, instills discipline that is perhaps difficult for them to get from elsewhere in such a unpredictable world of boxing, shall we say?
Yeah, I would give you the same argument, Matt, but I'm going to use much more simple language. My language is called $25 million. That somehow $25 million can change a human being, believe it or not. And when I started seeing him putting out videos of his ranch and his 55 Rolls Royces that he purchased, and that, by the way, was just with the, I don't know, $6-7 million he got to fight AJ in the first fight. Forget the 20 he got in the second fight, you know? So that's, you know, as marvelous Marvin Hagler, my all-time favorite, it's difficult to get up at 5 a.m. on that road run in your silk pajamas. And his ain't silk, his are silk with diamond studs. So yeah, I don't know. It's not about the sport. It's about the mentality, and it's very difficult to pick yourself up from that point until you're dead broke. You know, so you know we've seen it with so many fighters, and when they get dead broke, usually they're past their best as a sportsman. So it's a horrible cycle they get themselves into. You know, they get the money, they spend the money, and the time they're spending the money, they're losing their sporting ability. By the time they're dead broke, their sporting ability's gone. They try it again, and it doesn't work. You know, we've seen it. 100 examples of it, but you know, I hope for Andy that he's in a good place. He's earned a lot of money, so I hope he's put it in the right things. And you know, good luck to him. I'd love to see him in it. I think he's a cracking fighter. You know, you know, when he's on form, he's you know, he moves. He's for a big guy. He's, you know, we've seen it. We all saw it. You know, we all saw it in Madison Square. So. You know, it's 100% is the name. But once again, my role, and you know, that's the difference between making it a fan banter now. I've got to add my little bit of spice in by saying what's actually feasible here, what is possible, and I would have him down on the very grey list of whether that would be possible.
I hear you. Should we move on to light heavyweights?
Yeah, let's do that. Light heavies. First, what's your first name in at light heavy?
Beterbiev.
Yeah. Okay. So we agree on that one, Matt. We agree on that. Bivol.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bivol at second. Kovalev. Got to. Got to go UK now. Boatsi.
Yeah.
Callum Johnson, Yard, and now I've got a wild one for you. Let's say, and I believe he can win the fight on December 19. But if he doesn't, he's got to be looking to go up. I mean, I said I've never understood how Kalle makes the weight, yeah. But Callum Smith, you know, history with the tournament, former winner. So 100%. I think you look into Germany. You got Leon Bunn, who's up there in the rankings. Robin Krasniqi just won the WBA regular belt.
Yeah.
Gilberto Ramirez, former WBO super middleweight champ. Joe Smith. And then let me throw a wild one in. MTK Golden Contract winner. Michel versus Bolotniks, maybe coming in as a number 8. You know, I mean, it's some way they've fought through a tournament. I mean, different level, of course, but you know, to win 3 fights in a tournament over that period of time, they've had tough fights. It's a massive weight class in terms of depth of talent. You know? What I like about it is the spread of the nationalities. You know, you've got good UK crop there. You've got some interesting North American fighters. You know, you've got there's a bit of German in there. You know, you've got some Russian Eastern roots in there as well. It's a nice spread, but to get down to the 8 again, and this is the key when you look at making the tournaments. You have got to have that headache of selection. If you struggle to put down 6 names, 7 names, and you're like, oh God, I better look at the rankings. If I can't do this under the shower and come up with 12 names, I know, right? I know that weight class is wrong. So this one again, you know, similar to the heavyweights, similar to the flyweights, we're struggling now to come down to 12 even. You know, we're struggling. You know, but you see what I mean? As a fan, yeah. The people have got to listen to this and go and do what I just said. Go and write down the names and come up with tell me another weight class you could go up with. And that's why I think these 5 are the ones to focus on. These are the ones that we're looking at. And these ones where we know we can deliver it. We deliver what we've delivered, and that's the fireworks. That's those 50-50 fights. You don't get 50-50 fights, people, if you're naming people that you've never heard of before. Right? They tend not to be 50-50 fights. So to get the 50-50 fights, even from the quarterfinals on, you know, like I mentioned before, Maloney Rodriguez. People said to me, oh, the hell is this Maloney? Well, the 50-50 fight, well, I think it was a split decision. It was a hell of a fight. First round bantamweights. Yeah. You know, that was the same Rodriguez who beat Paul Butler by 13 rounds. Yeah. In the fight before. So you saw the levels, you know, and you know that these weights for me, they have that feeling, you know, they have that feeling. And there are other weights. I know people that you can also do this at, but we got to somehow, you know, the reason we're talking, we're trying to push it down and not up, and you know, we can't do more weights, and we definitely can't do all 5.
So before we move on to middleweight. 3 names in light heavyweight, kind of at the other end of their careers, but probably in a similar Derek Chisora kind of way. You got Jean Pascal.
Ooh.
Badu Jack.
Don't have him down. Hold on. So say again, the second one?
Badu Jack.
Yeah, Badu Jack, of course.
Marcus Brown.
Yeah. I mean, Badu Jack, see where he is in his career. He's had a lot of tough fights. Yeah. When you sign up for this tournament, it's 3 tough fights in a year. Yeah. I don't know where Badu is. He's one hell of an athlete, one of the toughest fighters out there. But it's quite an ask, you know. Theoretically, you could be fighting. You know, you could go Bivol, Berturbiev. And then to round it off, you got Callum or Kovalev in the final. You know, Callum Smith in the final has just come up in a year. That's a big ask at that stage of your career. Yeah? See, Kovalev is a bit different. I think Kovalev has, first of all, he had this massive amateur pedigree. Yeah, it's a different type of fighter. Badu Jack He's the most improved fighter when you look at his career. I've never seen a fighter within a career escalate himself through the ranks. Like, I remember he got stopped, and he got stopped in the first round, as I know. I remember it was a couple of fights before. I remember when Groves fought Jack. I called up George and said, we're in the luck here, right? We got Jack, yeah, and George didn't disagree. He said, no, George was always very respectful about Poe. He said, yeah, okay, well, I need to look at him or whatever. I was like, George, mate, this is like winning the lottery. I was shocked when I saw Jack perform the way he did. And it was, in the end, when it was a split decision, it was a very close fight. But really, George was the man for me in the division at the time. I really felt that. And so did many people. And for me, it was a shock, you know? And Jack kept on improving. You know, he had a fantastic training team. But is this at the wrong state? You'd have to look at it. Is it maybe the Donaire to come in? Jack's not so old, but it is. He has been through some wars of recent times. You know.
He has been. I think Jean Pascal is probably just kind of hanging on to the last remnants of his career. But with Badou Jack, he's kind of been unlucky in some of the fights. He had the injury, and
I called of the three. If I could pick, I'll go with Jack.
Yeah,
I'll go with Jack.
It's a great division, though. It's a great division. Let's move on to another interesting division with some interesting names. Middleweight. Now.
Oh, there we go again with the 12. You know, I mean, obviously, middleweights. You can't not mention the man that has to go in first on the list, of course. Triple G. And then I'm going to go with some. Chris Eubank Jr. Then I'm going to go in no particular order. This always it's sort of what springs to mind straight away. Definitely, I reckon I could tempt Billy Joe down. You're nodding, but you're not saying nothing, Matt. Are you agreeing? I think Billy Joe will go down. I think he's a cracking middleweight. You know, and I think this would be the sort of thing, once again, going to weight over the season. I think Billy Joe would benefit it being over a season and being able to control the weight over the season. The issue is when you don't have fights in between, you balloon. And Billy Joe doesn't really balloon. I've seen other fighters balloon a lot more between weights, yeah? But if you know that you've got those 3 fights in that, right, you can approach to training, and your approach to nutrition and the rest phases in between, which are just as important. So I'm going on that one. Billy Joe, Charlo, Murata. Over to the UK for Liam Williams, Liam Smith, Jeff Horn. Bit of Aussie in there. I know it's not the, you know, I think I like to look at it as a global tournament. So these aren't, you know, always decisions that people have to understand. We're looking at creating a global tournament, the best of certain countries. Derbachenko, Mongolia, Patrick Wojcicki, the IBF top-rated mandatory challenger from Germany. No, I think those are good names. You've got some other Germans. Dennis Radovan's another German. Fine. You know, if you need a bit the German influence there as well. But going back to the top of the list, I mean Charlo. Sorry, have I said Andrade? Did I say Andrade?
No, I haven't ticked him off the list yet.
Andrade. Sorry. Yeah, Andrade, 100%. Boo boo, definitely.
How just kind of as an aside, but related. How difficult is it for you? And we've had this conversation before. Andrade's next fight is kind of in the air. Looks like it might be Liam Williams. And you've got all this to consider when trying to put this together. Are you then going to try and speak to promoters and say, look, you've got so far with this fight, can we include it in as part of the World Boxing Super Series? Or are those guys off the table?
Matt, you've made a very valid point. We've had to do that in the past. We've had mandatories. We've had fights that have already been made where we said, okay, that looks great. We'll take that into the tournament and increase it into the tournament deal. You know, we have to be flexible. But now is the time where we hold the keys to so many fights. We hold the keys at the WBSS to make these fights. You know, a lot of those fights are not going to get made at the moment, but we can make them. So from a fan's point of view, when you're looking at this and analysing what you'd love to see, don't worry too much about the politics. Politics at the moment, everyone's working with everyone right now. You know, you're seeing everyone work with everyone. And there's a reason for that, because it's not normal times. You need to work together to get things done. So we come in, we're very, you know, we've always said we're a very neutral platform. We work with everyone. We have worked with everyone, by the way. And, you know, there's not a promoter we haven't worked with. And, you know, like last time, we would have theoretically, with, Ryan Burnett and Zolani Tete, they were due to meet in the semi-final. We would have even had Eddie and Frank on the same top table for that, for that thing. You know, that would have been sensational. But joking aside, it doesn't matter where they're from. Don't think about that right now. I know people say, oh, well, they're with this network, they're with that network. Don't let that be our concern. When you're looking at this and giving your feedback, don't worry about that. Leave that to us. We've worked miracles in the past where people said we haven't been able to do it. We are the miracle workers. So leave that to us. Give us the shopping list. Let us know what to do. And look, we look forward to that feedback. But yeah, you're right, Matt. There are issues to solve. Hence why it takes a little bit of time to put something like a tournament together. And hence why you know, my life can sometimes be a misery, but it's all for a good cause. It's all for a good cause. But I think that, you know, going back to the middleweights, those, you know, there are so many fights there to be made. Again, think about it. If you can't put down enough names immediately, thinking too long, it's the wrong weight class, and the middleweights just pop up. You know, alone for the Eubank versus Billy Joe Part 2 fight. You know.
So appealing. It's so
appealing.
But
that's how you get those sort of fights made sometimes. They both want to go to that tournament. To get them to fight each other outside the tournament will probably be difficult. You know?
Yeah.
That's where we break down the barriers. I'm not the Bob Geldof of boxing.
Brilliant. With that, we'll move on to. So, how many have we been through now? So
the most important one is next. The first ever female tournament. We did the first ever Boxing Champions League, but now it's time to get on with the females. That is what I feel. That's what I feel from everyone. Spoke even at Bob Arum on our WBSS Hangout podcast a couple of weeks ago. I asked him what weights to make. He said welterweight and the females. So, and he made a valid point, and I'm going to bring that up now like it's mine. So I'm stealing this off Bob, but don't tell anyone. It is Kalle's point. We need those 3-minute rounds. We need them, because I can't enjoy boxing watching 2-minute boxing, right? It doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for you. And don't tell me it works for you, because it doesn't. It's 3 minutes. They deserve it. The girls deserve it. And it's the only way that we can move towards having them completely established, you know, on the same, nearing the same pay grade as the men. They can never, you can't say that 2-minute rounds does the trick. It just doesn't. You get into a round and it's like, okay, well, this is picking up, and then the bell goes. You know, and the girls are fitter than the guys. Believe me. You know, I've seen enough training, and I'm a big fan of the ladies, and 100% they deserve the 3-minute rounds. So lobby for the 3-minute rounds. 3 more rounds, not 4 more years. 3 more rounds. 3-minute rounds is what it is. But aside of that, what weights are the weight? What girls are the weights to put in there? Okay. So I've said around the super feather mark, that I think that's where I get the most depth in it. You know, I saw, for example, you know, you look at Delphine Pursuit, Natasha Jonas, Terry Harper, Hamadouche, Dina Torsen, WBO champ from Denmark, Mekhaled, the French girl, Serrano, of course, Tiara Brown, Brodnica, Choi, South Korean, Michaela Meyer, of course. You know, and I've not even started yet. You know, I think there's other girls that would come in from other weights. Pretending we're talking about a little bit broader with the females, but I think that is the substance where you can. I mean, we saw some of the best boxing in the lockdown shows for me were the female fights. Jonas, Harper, you know, these fights, you know, great fights, you know, but you know, we need to pick up from that, and this will give them a platform like no other, you know. And I've spoken with a lot. I mean, Eddie holds a lot of the keys with the females. Spoke with he's very interested in it, and I know why, because it will bring the sport to the next level. I'm sure of it. We've seen it with the cruiserweights, you know, for years been doing the cruiserweights and you know, very unsexy international weight class, work amazingly in Eastern in Germany, but really it's the WBSS that are taking it to new places. The bantams, you know, would Inouye be such a recognised fighter? You know, arguably, because we can always have arguments around that list, but arguably the pound for pound number one. You know, would he have got that without that tournament exposure over a year on that platform? Absolutely bloody not. And it's the same with the females. Everyone's doing a great job around the females right now, but I just feel that this stage would give them that chance to go on. But please, let's try and get those 3-minute rounds.
You've been involved in women's boxing yourself for quite a long time. Is the standard now a lot better than it's ever been?
At the top end, no. It was always this level, you know, it's always been very high. The difference is the depth. You know, we work with Cecilia Breckus, of course, but a lot of female fighters. The level at the top has always been great. You know, the ones who've taken it, you know, as a full-time job are in a place to take it as a full-time job. The females aren't. Often 95% of the time they got a day job, you know, so it can only be that good. But the ones who've applied themselves and trained with trainers that are also established in the men's game, yeah, that level has always been up there. And, you know, we talk about equal pay and things like that. When it works at the female level, they earn big bucks, yeah? I mean, Regina Halmish in Germany, we're talking millions a fight, yeah? Millions a fight. She had viewing figures of 10 million plus. She was selling out multiplex arenas, yeah? So the level of pay for her was no different to the other German stars at that time, Sven Ocker or Marcus Bayer or Henry Masker. She was getting paid top. I've seen it work. I know it can work, and it will work. You know, this sport is only getting better, the female boxing. But what we need is to attract the next generation of talent in there, because it's sort of resting on your laurels. You know, it needs to attract the stars of the future. Girls that they don't just look at certain sports, that they pick up the gloves and go to a boxing gym. You know, and that's going to be the key. When the girls start their careers earlier, that's when it's going to get interesting. And I don't think it's a gender thing. I really don't. I think when they're on fire, they're on fire. You know, and you see some great fights.
We have mentioned countless great fights here with all of this. Before we close, just let everybody that's listening, watching, reading, whatever, what the next steps are now.
So in the next weeks, we will reconvene to find reconvene is the wrong word. Sound like a politician. Reconvene. We will establish the timeline of the tournament. That timeline is dependent on those people I was talking about, the politicians, because that's how we will model it. But we are modeling it in a way that we can safely guarantee the fighters those fights in that space of time. That's our key unique selling point to attracting the best of the best talent in, which we're looking for. And that's going to be a process over now until probably mid-January, I'm guessing. But and in that time, we're also doing the sporting part. So it's a parallel work. So I'm hoping, early in the year, we will be out with the new tournament. But it's all a moving target at the moment. It's a very moving target. So we know it's worth it. All the efforts. We could also just sit back, let this blow over, and then do the season. No, we're working through it to deliver. But it is a moving target. So all I can say is, it's all in good hands. It's all for a good cause, because we've seen what it can do for the sport. We've seen the excitement it brings to the fans, what it does for fighters who go in it, and it's a very special thing, and it's going to be a big 2021.
And what can fans do to kind of make their voice heard? Do we get in touch via Twitter? Leave comments?
Kick us. No, I mean the best is, to be honest, get on our Twitter or Instagram, whatever it is, and shout it out. There's an info@worldboxingsuperseries.com. Send us emails if you want. Voice your opinions. At the end of the day, people make professional sport at any level too complicated, and I'm a believer the end product is consumed by you at home, and those hopefully in the arena. But that's what we work off. It's no point. It's not Kalle who then presents it to the board and that and the other. Yeah, that's all good, but I have to read what people want, and we can only do that by obviously my daily routine is speaking to promoters, to media, to whatever, to fighters. So you soak up that know-how, and it's great. But really, it's the fans at the end who are the ones who are going to be consuming it and watching it or not watching it, and that's what you want to know. So far, we've got it bang on. We've got it spot on. You can see the many awards we've won. It's all very nice. The cupboard, the trophy cupboard is full of good fight, of best fight of the year awards, KO of the year awards, whatever you want to call them. That's all great, but ultimately it's down to what is watched. We had 9.3 million people in Tokyo, not in Japan, in Tokyo, watching the final of the bantamweights. That's a number that is, for me, gold dust. We had nothing, by the way, commercially, unfortunately. It wasn't a pay-per-view or anything. There was no extra money for it, but it was the nicest number to hit. That number is so huge. 9.3 million people in Tokyo, not Japan, in Tokyo, watched that fight live, right? The final, Don Air, and it's nice to have that platform, but boy, did those two take advantage of that platform and give out the right message for our sport. For the tournament, of course, as well, but for our sport, that's what you want to see in a Champions League final. That's what you see in the Wbss final. That's advertising. You can give the platform. I always say it. I've always said it as a promoter. You can give the platform. You can only do so much. So you can talk the talk. You can do this. You can make fancy video clips. You can do whatever you want to do. But ultimately, it's when the bell goes. That's when you're judged. And often the promoter's judged on that as well, though it's not even in the ring. But that worked, and that's when it's poetry in motion. And we've been blessed with these great fights so far. But I'm not really a betting man. I'm a statistical man. And my statistics are very simple here. They're very easy. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you no boring scientific talk. Best versus best equals high probability of a bloody good tear up, right? That's what it is, right? So mathematics. I was never much good at these equations and things like that. Best equals, you're not one of those equation things. High probability tear up, right? Boom. Have I solved it?
Let's leave it at that. That is the perfect end point. That's what the World Boxing Super Series is all about. And hopefully next time we're doing this, you'll be telling us exactly what you are going to be promoting next year and which weight classes it will be and which fighters will be involved. Absolutely.
And in the meantime, we've got a hell of a lot of work to be getting on with. Send your feedback, people.